Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Dev Spotlight series with MailChain. Super excited today to be talking with Dan, and he's going to take us deep into his world of Web3, the content he creates, the developers he's helping to educate, and his position, and how he got into Web3 and what he likes about it. So I'm not going to go into any more detail. I'll pass it over to you, Dan. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love this devs, like if we want to talk about great developer content, this is a great way. So everyone take notes. But yeah, happy to be here. My name is DappaDan. I've been doing kind of technical writing in this Web3 crypto blockchain space, whatever you like to call it, for the past 2 years. So mainly been focusing on educating and inspiring developers on various different protocols, projects, services, things like that. And it's been exciting. And it hasn't never gotten old so far.
Absolutely not. It's never stops changing. It's such a great space to be in because every corner you look around, there's something else being done that you're like, whoa, that's cool. Or, wow, I never thought of that before. It never ends, which is really great. And yeah, I know you focus mostly on developer things, which means that you are probably one of the most broadly knowledgeable people in the space. I think on Twitter every day I see you're looking at this or talking about this.
I try to share the knowledge, a little knowledge
Yeah,
garden.
you have a real knack for sort of being everywhere all at once.
There's actually three of me, so that's a benefit.
That helps. And so to that point, what made you want to get into Web3 and what made you want to try so many different things in Web3?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my background, I was primarily working in the sort of like fintech space and e-commerce type thing, building out software backend integrations to different payment systems and e-commerce systems. So I had like a natural like, oh, I love the world of finance and getting into that, right? But oddly enough, when I heard about crypto and blockchain, I was originally kind of turned off, not because of the technology, but I just assumed that this would be the barrier to entry. It was way too high for me, and this is kind of like a dumb thing to admit, but I didn't realize you could own like a percentage of a Bitcoin. I think you had to own like one Bitcoin. So when I saw like
Right,
at that
the
time
denomination,
it was
yeah.
like 30,000, or let's just say like 30,000 US for one Bitcoin, I was like, oh, this is not a game that I can play. It was only after like maybe the 2019 time when I started getting into hearing about smart contracts and sort of the benefits that they have. I've been kind of always trying to look at new technology and get my hands dirty into it. Like I was into AI way before AI was as cool as it
Yeah.
is now, right? And so this whole idea of smart contracts and making something programmable on a blockchain really excited me. And around that time, also, I started hearing around about Developer DAO. So big shout
Mm-hmm.
out to Developer DAO. There was this
Yeah,
very
big
like, early days of Developer DAO, but I was like, this is the place I need to be. Like, if I want to be a developer in this space, I have to go do that. So like, I basically like speed run through Web3 onboarding. Right? I was
yeah,
like, oh, they're gonna mint this NFT soon. Like you have to like mint it. This is the time where we had the Genesis NFT,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it was completely free to mint. So I was like, I don't know what any of this means, but I'm gonna go and like, I went to, I think it was like Coinbase or something. I was like, I heard about this MetaMask thing. Like, I need to convert some euros into ETH. I think that's how to like. I just started like just in 6 hours understood what wallets were, and this is
Yeah.
like a brag, but more like me just like stressed out because I thought it was just going to be like, oh, these NFTs are going to run out like the day they get dropped and I won't be able to be in it. So that's been really an acceleration for me, not only in the education space, but being a part of the developer DAO community, learning from other devs, understanding opportunities that are out there, what people want to learn has been like a major advantage when I work with different projects because I come with a little bit of an authority or a little bit more of a background, and that's been super helpful.
That's a very unique superpower to have, actually. Being able to understand what content people want to see and how they want to digest information is very difficult to do. I mean, in my role in marketing, a lot of what I do is think about, okay, is this the best way for us to share this information, or is
Yeah.
there a better way, to have the discussion or whatever it is? It's really hard to do. And actually, yeah, credit to the guys at Developer DAO. They produce some fantastic content. We've had a couple of them on this series. They're really, really good team over there. So now that you're part of the community of Developer DAO, how do you find the areas that you're going to explore? Do you partner up with people or do you go on your own?
Yeah, it's a little bit been on my own primarily. I mean, there's so many different concepts and different technologies that come out. The talk of the town now is zero knowledge, right? People
Yeah.
talk about it a lot. Some people know what they're talking about, some people don't. Some people just like to be a part of the excitement. So for me, it's really, let's take a concept like that. How can I break that down into digestible parts for me to understand? And luckily enough, maybe it's just the nature of it. Those are normally parts that other people like to understand. So when I do independent writing, that's mainly my primary focus, is basically educating myself. And it just works out that other people enjoy it as well.
That's really interesting because a lot of developers in Web3, they get into it to build a product or like to push a technology further. Whereas you're coming in from the angle of how can I learn this the most? I don't want to build a product, I want to build knowledge and then I want to
Yeah.
share that information with people. It is lucky that the things that you like learning about is also what other people like learning. But yeah, that's really cool. So, big topics at the moment: zero knowledge, account abstraction. When you're trying to take a big, complex, and relatively new concept like that, what's a good method to break down the knowledge into almost like missions for yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed?
I think that's a great question, because I think a lot of times, especially when people want to get into this content creation, education space, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
they like to take this mode of the explain like I'm five, right? And
yeah,
that's like, oh, if I could break this down and explain to a 5 year old, then it would be understandable for other people. But I don't write to 5 year olds. I'm not a 5 year old. And so this explain like I'm five, I get the idea behind it, right? Simplify, 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 but you need to keep some nuances, right? You need to speak to a certain level of audience in order to communicate properly, I think. Explain like I'm five is a good heuristic or a good idea to start with. But for me, when I'm trying to take a new concept, it is, to your point earlier, right? Builders want to build a product. So how does this product service protocol actually relate to some
yeah,
sort of value that it'll be delivered in a product? But it's still kind of like, how would I, as a developer, and through that lens, actually understand it and integrate it or build it with something? So it's not explain like I'm five, but explain like I'm an average Joe developer, which
yeah,
luckily I am an average Joe developer. So it's really easy for me to get to those points.
yeah. There is a, in any sort of content production, there is a risk of oversimplifying and kind of missing the mark of what it is you're actually trying to help people achieve. But I think the content you produce, and I think if anybody's read it will agree, is very like acute and delivers what it promises, which is really good. Do you consider yourself to be more of a content creator or more of a developer or more of an educator? What would, if you were going to give yourself a label title?
Yeah, it changes every some months, right? Right now, I feel like I'm trying to get more into my developer era, so back into going to hackathons and building. I would say, especially if you call to me last year, it was definitely full content creation, getting that, and now I'm more doing the development, but also even the content strategy. So I'm on a larger project right now where we're deciding on not just like make this article or make this documentation page, but why make that, or like how to build a whole developer hub
Yeah,
experience, which is exciting for me, right? Because most of the projects I've been on and worked with, it's building out, but not seeing the entire picture. So I really want to get into that perspective and learning a little bit more about from even the Web2 or traditional tech
mm,
space. There's been a lot of people making documentation for a very long time. So learning from those more experienced people, and how do I apply that to the strategy specifically for the Web3 space? I think there
yeah,
is some nuances to this audience and to the technology. Some of it's not all there, or it's very highly complex. And for talking to a developer, I need to boil that down into a kind of applicable way for a developer to get
yeah,
started.
yeah. I think we can all agree that there are aspects of Web3 that are quite underdeveloped or underdocumented, and that makes improving them and building on them very difficult to do. I find that quite a lot about people from Developer DAO and people that get involved in hackathons is they have this like very useful sort of characteristic where they want to build something for the good of the industry rather than for money or for fame, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
right.
They have this real sense of giving back to the community, which is huge in Web3. Not you don't see it quite as much in Web2, but you do see it occasionally. And that's one of the things we love the most about hackathons is you get to go and build something with like-minded people just for the sake of doing good and building something good, which is really cool. So you've taken part in some hackathons through your time. Is there any notable ones that you're like proud of what you built, or the way you operate, or the team you were with?
Yeah, well, I'm getting started now doing more of it. So I'm planning on, hopefully, big shout out to ETH Warsaw. Maybe this before this airs, it's happening or already happened. Planning on attending the hackathon there. So really, I've done a few of the online hackathons, especially through Developer DAO. But yeah, I'm really to do an in-person one and really see what I can build with a team. Hopefully, I think it's super exciting to see how to digest some of the content that's out there in that condensed space. I'm
Yeah,
not going to be
yeah,
those types that come with, I built this project 6 months ago and here it is again. I really want to be like, okay, I've never touched this product or
yeah.
protocol before. Let me try to get this done in the weekend's time.
Yeah, you really get like a nice time window, and you're going to go from zero to hero in 72 hours.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
part of the challenge. That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. So another thing that you do a lot is you're very good at joining the conversations and being active on Twitter. Or do you enjoy that part? Do you enjoy being vocal and sharing your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Is this a session? This is like a
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I'm your
yes.
therapist.
Yeah. This is a therapy session. That's fine. Yeah, I do enjoy it largely because, like I said, if you want to get an understanding of what's out there, I do find, especially Twitter, for better or worse, is probably the best resource to understand the pulse of the community and understanding like what other people are building.
Mm.
Discord is great. I use Discord. I use Telegram, but these are kind of harder to curate at times, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in a Discord, you get all the Discord messages. You could filter and all these things. But with Twitter, you can follow certain people. You can build lists, which I use quite often, especially if I'm interested in a certain protocol or a certain space. I will build a list of people that, let's say, decentralized storage, like all the
Yeah.
DevRel people in decentralized storage, because they're going to constantly be posting stuff and getting that knowledge. So I do encourage, if there's like a tip from all of this, is like use the social media very consciously, and don't just, oh well, I'll just join and
Yeah.
following all the people with the most likes and the most followers, because you might not get that much quality value out of it.
Yeah. One of the, and it's something I'm trying to be better at personally, is being part of a community isn't just clicking the Discord join button. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
hard to be a community member. And I'm still learning how to do it, how to engage, and how to be part of the conversation and start to build up this sort of personal brand within a community. I don't think it's very easy to do. I don't think many people know how to be part of a community. Do you have any advice or any tips you could give?
yeah. Well, I guess for the running a community side, I think it's probably the best value I could say, and that is, I think Discord is probably the worst thing that ever happened to Web3. And I don't mean it because the UI and there's notifications
Yeah,
and it's so crazy. I don't like it because it's, oh, join this page, click the accept invitation, and then people think job done.
yeah,
And for me, if you're building any new product protocol out there in Web3, you're throwing a party.
yeah,
And you can make a very fancy invite, right? You can go sponsor hackathons, you can have great Twitter spaces, all the marketing stuff that you do. But then when people come to the party, you need to serve
yeah,
something, right?
yeah,
You need to have good music. You need to have great other guests to them to talk to, or great food, something, right? And it needs to be some foundation once you get people in. And I think Discord and this idea of community is that, okay, if we can just send people invites and we get our Discord to grow by X amount, that's progress. And I
yeah,
don't think that necessarily is the case. Even if you have a 20-member Discord and there's activity because you're giving people opportunities to contribute. And I think
yeah,
that's another big thing about community is like, you don't just speak to the community, right? You're not just making content. Like, this is great for community, right? Having people, spotlighting people that are in the community, not just, here's Mel Chain's new
yeah.
feature.
No one gets excited about that. People want to engage and feel a connection to whatever it is that they're,
For
consuming.
sure.
And it's so hard to do that. I really like your party analogy. Imagine just turning up to an empty warehouse and
Yeah,
just being
empty
like,
box.
what do I do? But
Maybe a poster that says like your
yeah,
protocol's name. And
yeah, it's great. 40,000 people are coming. Yeah, what are we going to do when we get there?
yeah,
Like,
100%. So I would encourage people, for the building community, make sure you build like a good foundation. And for me, the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit is quality content, and that is documentation, educational content. You don't need to go out and build a whole academy. I've seen that's being very, used to be very popular, and now maybe other protocols aren't investing so much time in that. but you still need to give some general education, right? Not just about
Yeah.
your product. And then largely the community needs to have an opportunity to contribute, to be spotlighted, whether they're building a product in your hackathon. Then you need to like go interview those developers, right? Make a whole show of it, because they will appreciate it. But then people that want to join your party later on and say, oh, this is what you get when you join that party, and not just a nice t-shirt.
Yeah. I can't remember who came up with it, but a long time ago I heard this 80-20 rule,
Okay.
where they were basically saying if you're a marketer or a community builder, you should only talk about yourself at most 20% of the time. And 80% of the time, you should be talking about the industry and providing thought provoking questions and educational material and documentation, because people will understand who you are really quickly.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
not that deep, but what they can get from you and what you can keep providing is something that people will come back for if you deliver good stuff. So it's hard to do, and you've got to be on your toes with how you deliver that. But I think he's definitely correct in saying that you need to provide the foundations for people.
Yeah, I like this. I think it's the Daring Fireball. I think that's a blog. The author of that was like, it's not about the page that you track. You can go viral on Twitter or Hacker News or whatever. It's the second article that people actually start building that community. If you don't have a second article, then you're really dead. If your second article is just about you talking about your product, you're probably not going to do so well. But
Yeah.
if you have a continuous second, third article, fourth article that's of interest, that's massive. And I think for anyone that's interested in getting in the space of like content creation, you can hype up the launch as much as you like, but hype up your third article, hype up your fourth article, get people excited about that, because then when people come and they go back and let's see what DappaDan has also written, then they'll see
Yeah.
3 other articles that might like, rather
Yeah.
than me just getting excited about this one article or one podcast episode or one video, whatever, and then I never do it again because the response didn't come
Yeah.
as I expected. Just do it 4 or 5 times and then start measuring.
Yeah. Another thing to that point is sometimes if you do go viral or just have a very good post, there's temptation to just do that again and again and again.
Yeah.
Because it did well that one time. But after a while, you've got to change and pivot to something else. Otherwise, all you'll become known as is that first thing. And people will get bored of it after a while sometimes. It's not always best to just repeat the same things.
Yeah,
You know?
that's definitely some friction, I think, for when anyone is making any content, right? It's
Yeah.
how to continue to innovate. We're going to do this for this type of content for a few weeks, and then the next week we'll do this, and
Yeah.
then we'll transition over. But we can always go back to it, but don't just like repeat,
Yeah.
Mm.
And people love a rerun.
Yeah. Seinfeld's
Exactly.
still very popular, but you need to make a Seinfeld first before you start playing those reruns.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a bit about you're getting into this platform and looking at the bigger picture of how content's delivered and stuff. So what's the story there? Are you working on a product? What's the plan?
Yeah, so this main project that I'm working on right now is with a company called Settlement, and they're doing a sort of enterprise blockchain platform, helping developers getting started in that space. And it's super interesting because now I'm getting to step back more and look at different personas of users and audience. So while it's a core developer hub, other people might arrive in this developer hub or different skill levels, for example, or different roles within a certain project or a company. So then how do we sort of speak to that particular audience? And everything should have at least 1 or 2 personas attached to it saying, this is exactly who we're speaking to. And then also having very clear learning goals, right? So most of the time content, you're just trying to complete it. But here it's how do you build a story that once you're done reading this piece of content, you will be able to do X, and that will enable you to do Y, and that's going to be a good result for you because of Z, right?
And is the ambition for this to be like an educational platform to get people, if they want to become a dev rel, like a pathway they can follow, or if they want to become back end, front end?
Yeah, it's a bit of a spread as far as the developer skill set, but it's also primarily focused on really getting people quickly started on it. Like I know we're going through a bear market now for more of the consumer side of things, but on the enterprise side, there's still a lot of activity and a lot of interest. I think it's also because enterprises tend to lag,
Yeah,
2 years
for
or
sure.
so.
Yeah.
Which is also super exciting for me because now you're educating people again. Like I think when I entered the space, everyone was like, what is the EVM? What is consensus? Like all of these things, right? But now I think the general, if we say like if we had like a hive mind, they all kind of understand that now.
They got the basics. Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're talking about ZK proofs and all of these other way more in-depth things. But on the enterprise side, it's of interest, these things, but they're still also getting started
Yeah.
on that. So also nice to get that refresher back.
Yeah. Also, in that position, it means that you can get ahead of the curve because you're almost like, you're almost in the future. You know about the new stuff that's going to be interesting in 6 months to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I look forward to learning more about settlement and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, thanks.
So one of the questions that we always ask people on this is what kind of advice you can give to someone that's starting in Web3, maybe as a developer, maybe as a content creator, maybe as a writer. Do you have any standout experiences or wisdom that you can pass on to the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, like, especially for the writing side, I would say write for yourself. I think a lot of people, or what I see when people approach me for advice and tips, I think they try to create a brand for themselves
Mm.
or create a whole ecosphere for themselves before they actually focus on the quality of the content. So it's cool if every article you have your profile picture and all of these
Yeah, yeah,
things, and you like it's a lot of mimicry of people who have more established content. But if you're writing for yourself, you're probably never going to end up with a writer's block. You're never going to be, oh, I don't know what to write
yeah,
about this time. And also, when you're writing for yourself, you can really learn the process of creating quality, the actual steps. Where when you're trying to write for an audience, you start to lose that. You start to try to, again, not establish your own voice. Like that takes some time. And people say write every day. I don't write every day. You don't have to constantly produce something. So also take it slow. But you do want to, once you hit a curve, be very prolific. To your point earlier, when you so kindly put it that I'm everywhere, you definitely want to be there, but that takes time as well. You need to provide quality first. And the only person that you should write for at the beginning, I think, is writing for yourself. And then once you're impressed, you're probably going to impress others.
yeah. Right, for yourself, and you produce something that you like. Chances are there's going to be someone else out there that likes that too,
Yeah.
and likes that the way it's delivered. Excellent. Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Dan. It's really exciting to find out about the other side of the developer community. Is it's not always lines of code and producing products, it's sharing information, sharing knowledge. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really cool. We will speak soon. We'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks.